Action. Uh, Aaron Douglas here with Daniel Herndon of Redwall Live and other activities, I'm sure. And Daniel, tell me what you love.
What do I love? Well, Aaron, what I really love, and what I think what really fascinates me, and I was thankful to be able to be prepped prior to this meeting, is the way that people, basically business strategy is the thing that interests me most. But business strategy sounds really boring. What it comes down to is business strategy is relative to the way that people react to the place that they work at, in a way that creates the output of that business.
Okay.
So, for example, even before, now I'm in the marketing business, and even before a marketing agency such as Redwall Live gets the opportunity to do what we call traditional marketing, that business has already created a story, and that story started with maybe it started with an idea. It bloomed into a philosophy and a way of life. Sometimes that way of life might seem like it's isolated to a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 type of thing, but ultimately at the end of the day, that way of life is what creates the output of the company. And marketing, which is what we do, is really just a bullhorn for something that's already existing. A bullhorn is completely worthless if you don't have a story to tell.
Agreed. So, would one way to look at that be culture in terms of a label, the culture of a company and its impact on how it presents itself publicly, or is that oversimplifying it?
No, actually, that's a great way of putting it. So the example that I would like to use is how your company shuts down on Fridays. So
we don't answer our phone on Fridays, but go on.
Right. So now everybody knows that you're actually in the office. But on Fridays, you guys have a unstructured work day, or if in theory maybe it's even defined as a non-work day, which, because of the way that people feel about what they do, they might still do work, and ultimately they're more productive. So you've applied a culture by saying, you know what, let's just close on Fridays. That allows people to work because they want to instead of work because they have to. When you work because you want to, you produce much greater work. And from my standpoint as a marketing executive, really that just creates a great opportunity for me to do a much better job at marketing because I get to tell people something they want to hear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, say a little more about that.
So if I was to tell you that, let's say I sold insurance and I wanted to create a marketing campaign that was all about how insurance is a way of paying people just in case something ever happened.
It's security for the future.
Yeah. So that's what you actually made it a little more interesting by calling it security for the future, but insurance is just paying a bill into nothing. Mm-hmm. But when you start to talk about how people buy boats and they go on a boating trip, and that ultimately puts them in a situation where, they're enjoying their life. Well, people want to continue to live in that enjoyment. So there's something that's worth talking about, living an enjoyable life. Talking about paying a bill to cover a necessary financial need is really not interesting at all. So marketers, which is what I do and what I enjoy doing, is they identify something that is inspiring and desirable, something that somebody wants to hear, and really just present it. So we're talking about my passions is to actually to allow or help or even just really get to enjoy watching a company create that internal passion, that internal culture that makes that story much more tangible instead of just having to create a made-up story.
Something you said that I've always associated with you but not used those words was about helping people inspire others. Taking something like insurance, which nobody wants, but the only thing I want less than insurance is the fear of not having insurance.
Right.
And finding a way to inspire them where it actually gives you access to a greater quality of life. That's a fantastic transition, and it's completely true, but people don't think about it that way, correct?
Yeah, well, the automatic thought is to think of things in black and white terms. I'm looking at a computer and I see keys, but the secondary thought that is more of a feeling is that you and I are exchanging thoughts and ideas, which is meaningful. The use of the tools is just something that's there.
It's a means to an end.
Yeah, so exactly. So when Google does a great job of highlighting this experience right here, or whatever other company that's selling those technology products, their goal is to focus on those experiences that you're living within that are meaningful, that are only enhanced because of a very boring, uninteresting product.
Like shoelaces.
Like shoelaces.
Shoelaces.
They save lives.
They do. If you've ever been hiking in backcountry and broken a shoelace, that literally ends the trip if you don't have an extra one.
Yeah, exactly.
When did you start recognizing this passion of recognizing culture and helping people to? It almost sounds like you help clients magnify their culture so that it's something that they can share with the larger world. Am I making that up, or is that close?
Yeah. Yes, you are making that up, but it is also accurate. So
good.
It sounds like a marketer, a traditional
marketer. You are a culture marketer.
Yeah. So, where I've realized this is by being in the marketing business and working with any client that I could get. At times, you find that just without sharing any names, basically, in the past, I've had clients that basically we were marketing something that didn't exist because we were hired to. So we were doing honest work, but we didn't feel like it because there was no company to stand behind the message, right? So a company that was unresponsive, hated their jobs, felt like it was always a bad day, yet we're saying, it's so great to have this product, right? Well, why would it be so great if the people that work there don't love it too?
That's a good point.
And then getting the opportunity at the same time to also work with companies that are so excited about what they do and enjoy their day-to-day time at work doing that. The difference from my perspective, in terms of marketing, it's so much easier to create a marketing campaign when it's about something that when the people behind it are excited about what they're doing and they love it and they believe in it.
Please say a little more about how this fascination has changed the way that you work, how it's changed the trends or the patterns that you use based on knowing this. How have you evolved as a result of this awareness?
Yeah. So, I'll tell you even a step further than that, how it's changed areas of my life that have little or nothing to do with business. So it's allowed me to recognize the impact of someone's identity on the way that they behave with their family, their children, their friends. And it's because, first of all, I can say that in my many, many years of being in the career world, that I have had jobs that I've hated, and I've had jobs that I loved, and there's a distinct difference. And as an entrepreneur, and as I've grown in down that path of growing a business and being involved with other businesses, I've started to realize that people that are happy at work are so much happier in every other area of their life. I don't know which part came first, but when your passion is connected to what you do for a living, life is so much better.
I agree, and vice versa. When your life is great, especially if your job is rewarding. There are some interesting studies on happiness that suggest it's almost predetermined per individual, that regardless of your situation, you're only going to be so happy, and that winning the lottery and losing a loved one may create a momentary peak or drop in your baseline happiness, but that everybody seems to return to the same across their lifespan.
So is it the same for that person, or does everybody
person.
So we don't share a middle ground or anything?
Correct.
Okay.
It's more about the individual is consistent and persistent across the lifespan. Which, what are you going to do? I'd rather be around happy people.
Yeah, I definitely prefer being around happy people.
So recognizing this has changed the way that you do business, not just internally, but the business with others. I mean, essentially, it's changed quite a bit about your life, correct?
Yeah, I would say so.
As you've become more and more aware of it, it's impacted your life. So you have this body of evidence, right, that you've created based on following your passions, your inspirations, which gives you more weight when you have a passion currently. It's like, well, I know that listening to this is good, and I'm going to follow it, and I'm going to create something or whatever. What advice do you have for people who have identified a passion for themselves, but maybe don't have a body of evidence to support doing that and are afraid to pursue it?
Well, unfortunately, you're wasting time if you're not. And the only way that you can get that body of evidence, in my opinion, is to go ahead and take the opportunity to experience it. As far as I know, I mean, for me, I always had imagined things that I would love to do, as if they were dreams. Like when you're a kid, you think, I can't wait till I'm 16, I can drive, but really it doesn't seem real until the day that you actually get your learner's permit and you're like, I might actually be able to sit behind the wheel finally, while the car's moving. And
and you're driving. But go on.
Yeah, but anyway, so my point with that is that until you do it, you probably can't prove that it's the right thing or the wrong thing. So sometimes I think that the worst thing to infect somebody's life is just the fear of failure.
Mm.
And
fear to the point where it prevents them from acting. Because if you can be afraid and do it anyways, good for you. Honestly, I think that's what doing stuff is.
Yeah. Well, and I was actually mentoring someone on writing a marketing strategy, because that's something that there's some structured things to it, but there's also some talent behind it. And I was talking to her about how, when she has attempted to write a marketing strategy, she feels like basically she's trying to cater to the client that she's working with. Mm-hmm. And where I differ with that is you have to be willing to essentially break their expectations, because you're the consultant. So I'm relating that to this conversation because everybody's afraid of pain. Everybody avoids pain. So people are afraid of providing advice that gets them in trouble, even if it's right. And when it comes to, for example, creative services like we provide, sometimes we have to say, we have to be willing to to be right and the other person be wrong, even though they're paying the bill. And in most cases, as long as you stand behind your ideas, it's an opportunity to enlighten them, and they're really pleased with the results. And I'm kind of tying that into just making a life decision as well. People are raised to fit into society. And
productive members of society, I've heard.
Exactly. And you might have to break the rules, even though some of them are just silly rules. You might have to break and maybe sometimes bend a few rules to get to that whatever that next stage is, where you can live out your passion.
What kind of as a wrap up, what are some other things in your life that you're especially passionate about right now, that you'd like to draw some attention to?
Actually, one thing comes to mind, which is the importance of relationships.
Okay.
So a lot of you've heard of this social media thing that's out there.
Is that still around?
I don't know. I haven't checked, but
yeah, you mean Facebook? Go on.
Yeah, well, Facebook is one thing. So anyway, people talk about it all the time, and they talk about how important or critical social media is to life or whatever, or to marketing. It's the most important thing to marketing, or the biggest change, or whatever. But I would argue that it's perhaps the least important thing. And the reason why is because social media wouldn't even exist if it weren't for relationships. Let's take the phone, for example. Phones have been around for 100 years or so. Maybe I'm way off on that. I wasn't around, but
a little longer, but go on.
Longer than Facebook, and I can prove that.
Yeah.
But phones are literally just a previous version of Facebook.
Sure.
And phones are completely useless, but relationships are important. Connecting with people is important, and communicating with people is important. So that creates a reason why you would use something that is valuable, like a phone, and later on Facebook or Skype. And those things by themselves don't matter, but people matter.
They are means or mediums at best. We have that conversation, and someday there will be something else, and it will be how people share with each other. And that's what you're saying. It's about the relationship of the people. The current technology is the means in which that we can influence and assist and impact them.
Yeah. Well, for me, I relate this to a number of other things, such as church, for example. All my life growing up, church was the most important thing in the world. But I came to a point in my life where I realized it was perhaps the least important thing, or one of the least important things. But what is important is the connection and relationships that you establish, which is the real purpose of what churches are founded on, and schools and many other things. For me anyway, it's a great realization to realize what is the actual value is not what we are calling valuable. Sometimes we miss the whole point of things.
It's not the church, it's the people that go to church.
Exactly. And it's one to another. It has nothing to do with going to a certain place at a certain time, as much as what can happen when people choose to do that with the right intentions.
Excellent.